the open country of northern Oklahoma, where the southern plains meet the eastern edge of the high prairie, the land tells stories that take generations to understand. This is country shaped by water and weather, by migration corridors that predate any human boundary, by soils that have learned to hold native grass and timber in patterns nature worked out long before anyone thought to map them. To know this landscape is to recognize that certain places within it are more than the sum of their acres. What follows is a portrait of 6 such places, a collection of properties that, taken together, represent some of the finest hunting and recreational ground available anywhere in the state. It begins, as many exceptional properties do, with a river. The Salt Fork moves quietly through the flat plains of northern Oklahoma, bending through sandhills and river bottom timber, carving a corridor that has served as passage for wildlife for thousands of years. To stand on its banks at first light is to understand almost immediately why everything that lives in this part of the world eventually finds its way here. Each winter, as temperatures fall across the southern plains, the smaller water resources disappear. Farm ponds seal over, marshes lock up. But where the Salt Fork runs shallow over gravel and sandstone, the current keeps moving. Mallards, pintails, and Canada geese, birds traveling this flyway their entire lives, locate that open water the way they always have, from the air. Guided by instinct, sharpened over generations. When the rest of the region locks up, this corridor becomes one of the few places left. 3 properties sit along this stretch of the river. The first is Salt Fork River Ranch, 1,558 acres, 2.5 miles from the Salt Plains National Wildlife Refuge, one of Oklahoma's most renowned wildlife preserves. 2.2 miles of Salt Fork frontage runs through the property, feeding native grass, plum thickets, river timber, and open bottom ground. The habitat complexity covers whitetail, waterfowl, turkey, and quail, giving the same ground a different purpose in every season. But this ranch is more than habitat alone. The intentionality begins at the gate. Rock roads and trail systems give all-weather access across every corner of the property. The land is fully fenced and cross-fenced. 11 water wells are distributed across the ranch, several already piped to pasture. A home, equipment storage, and working support structures make this a turnkey operation the day a new owner takes possession. From the gate to the river, this ranch reflects a standard that is hard to find and even harder to replicate. Further along the same corridor lie 2 additional properties, sharing the same water, the same flyway, the same habitat, but each telling a slightly different story. Riverbend Ranch carries 1.5 miles of Salt Fork frontage across native grass pasture and open bottom ground. The sandhills roll before dropping into river timber, and in that transition, a whitetail herd has built quietly over years of low hunting pressure. These are not deer that have wandered through. They have grown up here. Salt Fork Bottoms covers 340 acres with 1.4 miles of its own frontage. The terrain closes in, The plum thickets grow denser. The property has a contained, almost hidden character. The kind of place wildlife does not leave once it finds it. Bobwhite quail hold in the plains of both properties, a species whose presence speaks directly to the quality and continuity of the native grassland that surrounds them. Together, these three Salt Fork ranches represent more than 5 miles of river frontage along one of northern Oklahoma's most productive wildlife corridors. Properties shaped by the land rather than imposed upon it. A short distance from the river, the country changes. The flat plains roll into gentler relief. The native grasslands open up. And on 640 acres of this country sits a property of an entirely different character. Clearwater Ranch is not wild country in the way a river bottom is wild. It is something different, a working landscape, shaped over years by people who understood what it could produce. What makes it remarkable is the degree to which the natural systems and the human improvements now operate as one. Water is the organizing principle. 12 solar wells, distributed across the property, feed and maintain a network of ponds that hold water year-round. For the cattle that rotate through the cross-fenced pastures, it means consistent access in every paddock. For the whitetail deer and Rio Grande turkey that move through the native grass and scattered cover, it means they never have to leave. Several of these ponds, stocked with bass and catfish, offer their own quiet recreation. At the center of the property sits a 2,100 square foot home, recently renovated. A 40 by 60 spray foam insulated shop stands nearby, alongside additional structures built for the ongoing demands of a functional ranch. The improvements were placed where they make sense. They were built to last. Clearwater is what happens when natural foundation, developed water, and sustained stewardship align on the same ground. A ranch that is ready for cattle, for horses, for hunting, for fishing, for the kind of country life that asks the land to provide everything and trust it to deliver. To the west, the landscape changes again. In the sandhill country of northwestern Oklahoma, the prairie folds into native grass and dense thicket. And it is here, in this country, that 2 more properties define what serious hunting ground in this state is supposed to look like. Wind Canyon Ranch covers 960 acres at the heart of it. For the bobwhite quail that have inhabited this part of the country for as long as it has existed, plum thickets are not a feature of the landscape. They are the landscape. Without them, the species cannot survive. With them, in volume, populations build into something extraordinary. This ranch holds that volume. The native grass stands are expansive. The edge habitat runs through every quarter section. Hens nest in the bunch grasses. Coveys roost in the thickets. The entire life cycle of the species plays out within a few hundred yards of itself, year after year. The whitetail deer benefit from the same system. Heavy bedding cover, low pressure across decades, the conditions that allow mature bucks to grow old. 7 wells distribute reliable water across the ranch. A comfortable home overlooks a scenic pond in the home site. Several shops and pole barns stand nearby. The terrain rolls. The cover closes in. The road disappears behind you. The property feels off-grid in a way that very few accessible ranches actually achieve. Adjoining Wind Canyon, sharing the same habitat, the same corridor, the same ecosystem, sits the Grant County 450. Because wildlife does not recognize property lines, the bobwhite quail that nest in the plum thickets, the whitetail deer that travel the sandhills at dusk, the Rio Grande turkey that work the native grass bottoms, none of them honor a fence. They follow habitat. They follow cover. For wildlife, contiguity matters. A 450-acre tract surrounded by similar habitat functions differently than one surrounded by row crop. The cover does not end at the fence. The travel corridors do not stop. This property offers any number of options inside a landscape that is becoming increasingly rare. 6 properties, more than 4,000 acres of land, a river corridor, a working ranch, a sandhill quail paradise, assembled into a collection that on its own would take a lifetime to find piece by piece. Properties of this scale are not built. They emerge from geography, from time, from the quiet decisions of people who manage the land well enough to let it become what it is. This is northern Oklahoma at its finest. These are the ranches that hold it.